Why is it that after a breakup, we become so desperate for closure that we'll sacrifice our dignity just to hear one more explanation? You replay conversations in your head, analyze text messages until 3 a.m., and wonder what you could have said or done differently. And that burning question keeps you up at night. Why couldn't she see my worth? I've been there. That place where your mind becomes a prison of unanswered questions, where your heart feels like it's being crushed under the weight of rejection, where you convince yourself that if you could just get her to explain everything one more time, maybe it would finally make sense. But what if I told you that chasing closure is actually keeping you trapped? Think about it. What happens when you pursue someone who's already decided to walk away? You're not changing their mind, you're reinforcing their decision. Every desperate text, every plea for one more conversation is like holding up a sign that says, "Look how much power you have over me." The truth is hard to hear, but it's time someone said it. Closure isn't something you get from someone else. It's something you give yourself. When you make your healing dependent on another person's words or actions, you hand over control of your life to someone who's already chosen not to be in it. You're waiting for permission to move forward when the only permission you need is your own. Let's be honest. What would that final conversation really give you? Would her explanation suddenly make the pain vanish? Would hearing "it's not you, it's me" for the 10th time finally bring you peace? Or are you just hoping she'll regret her decision and come running back? The closure you're seeking isn't about understanding. It's about validation. You want her to acknowledge your worth because somewhere along the way you stopped acknowledging it yourself. But here's where everything changes. What if instead of chasing after someone who couldn't see your value, you started demonstrating that value through how you handle the breakup? What if instead of trying to convince her she made a mistake, you focused on becoming the person she'll eventually realize she lost? This isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about reclaiming your power and redirecting your energy towards something that actually serves you. So how do you do this? How do you shift from desperately seeking closure to becoming someone she'll genuinely regret losing? First, embrace the silence. When you stop reaching out, you create space, not just between you and her, but within yourself. Space to feel the pain without trying to fix it. Space to rediscover who you are without the relationship. Space to hear your own thoughts instead of obsessing over hers. Silence isn't just the absence of communication. It's a powerful form of communication itself. It says, "I respect your decision, and I respect myself enough not to beg." That commands more respect than any perfectly crafted message ever could. Second, redirect your focus inward. That energy you've been pouring into analyzing the relationship, channel it into understanding yourself instead. What patterns do you keep repeating? What needs weren't being met? What parts of yourself did you compromise or neglect? The most attractive quality in anyone isn't how they look or what they achieve. It's self-awareness. When you demonstrate that you can look honestly at yourself and grow from experience, you become magnetic in a way that physical attraction can't compete with. Think about the qualities that initially drew her to you. Were you confident, passionate, authentic? These qualities didn't disappear when she left. You just stopped embodying them because you became focused on what you lost rather than what you still have. Now, let's talk about your social media presence. No, I'm not suggesting you post revenge photos or try to make her jealous. That's transparent and ultimately reinforces that you're still operating in reaction to her. Instead, share authentic moments of growth, new experiences, and genuine connections with others. The key word here is authentic. People can sense the difference between someone who's genuinely living their life and someone who's curating a highlight reel specifically to provoke a reaction. The former attracts, the latter repels. Remember, she's probably watching, even if she never comments or likes your posts. But you're not living for her attention anymore. You're living for yourself. And paradoxically, that's exactly what might make her question her decision. Third, and this is crucial, expand your world instead of shrinking it. After a breakup, there's a tendency to withdraw, to make your life smaller as if to match the hole they left behind. Resist this with everything you have. Try that hobby you've been curious about. Have dinner with friends you haven't seen in months. Travel somewhere new, even if it's just a day trip to a nearby town. Read books that challenge your thinking. Start that creative project you've been putting off. With each new experience, you're not just filling time, you're expanding your identity beyond the person who got left. You're building a life that's richer and more textured than the one you had in the relationship. And that's when something interesting happens. People are naturally drawn to growth. We're fascinated by those who continue to evolve and discover new dimensions of themselves. When you become that person, someone whose life is visibly expanding rather than contracting, you become magnetic, not just to your ex, but to everyone around you. Fourth, practice selective vulnerability. There's a difference between processing your emotions and broadcasting them. Find trusted friends, or perhaps a therapist with whom you can be completely honest about your pain, but to the wider world, and especially to her, demonstrate resilience. This doesn't mean pretending you're not hurt. It means showing that you can be hurt and still move forward, that you can acknowledge the pain without being defined by it. That's the kind of emotional maturity that makes someone think, maybe I underestimated them. Now, what about when you do inevitably run into each other? Because you will. The universe has a funny way of ensuring that happens right when you've finally stopped rehearsing what you'll say. When that moment comes, be warm, but brief. Ask how she's doing, and actually listen to the answer. Share a genuine highlight from your life if she asks. Then wish her well and continue with whatever you were doing. No dramatic speeches, no subtle digs, no fishing for compliments or reassurance. Just the quiet confidence of someone who has processed their feelings and is genuinely at peace with how things turned out. That moment, that brief, understated interaction, will likely stick with her far longer than any emotional plea or perfectly crafted text message ever could. Because it shows her something she might not have expected, that you've found closure without her help. Here's the beautiful irony in all of this. The moment you truly stop needing her to regret losing you is precisely when she's most likely to feel that regret. Not because you've manipulated the situation, but because you've grown into someone who knows their worth. And that kind of transformation is impossible to ignore. But by then, something even more important will have happened. You'll have discovered that whether or not she regrets her decision actually doesn't matter as much as you thought, because you'll be too busy appreciating your own growth, enjoying your expanded world, and perhaps even opening yourself to new connections that better reflect the person you've become. The true measure of healing isn't whether you get another chance with her. It's whether you would even want that chance if it were offered. It's reaching a place where you can look back with gratitude for both the beautiful moments and the painful ending that forced you to rediscover yourself. So stop chasing closure from someone who couldn't give you what you needed when you were together. Instead, become the kind of person who doesn't need external validation to know their worth. Become someone who can say, "Thank you for leaving, because it led me back to myself." That's when she'll see what she lost. That's when she might reach out, wondering if there's still a chance. And that's when you'll realize the most powerful truth of all, that your worth was never determined by her ability to see it.